and America, planet which you want to downsize, those cars and the countries. Las Vegas is facing a crisis nobody wants to talk about.
Something is happening in Las Vegas that nobody expected. Not after the boom of the 2000s, not after the post-pandemic comeback, not after billions were poured into new casinos, new arenas, new attractions. And yet, the Strip feels wrong. On nights that used to pulse with life, you now see empty sidewalks, tables with no players, bars serving one or two guests, hotel lobbies that echo when they never used to. It's not a blackout, not a recession, not a disaster. It's something more unsettling. Las Vegas, the city built on noise, excess, crowds, and chaos, is starting to go quiet. The question everyone keeps asking is, why is Vegas empty? But that's the wrong question. The real question is, how did the most famous entertainment city in America lose its magic without anyone noticing it slip away? Subscribe to Geologic, and let's pull apart the illusion the city has been hiding for years. Vegas didn't fall because tourists vanished. It fell because the feeling of Vegas changed. For decades, this place mastered one thing better than anywhere else. It made ordinary people feel extraordinary. Cheap rooms, cheap buffets, free drinks, friendly staff. An atmosphere so loud and alive it made you forget your real life for 48 hours. You didn't come here to gamble. You came here to escape. And Vegas delivered. People left with stories, not regrets. They lost money, but they felt entertained. They spent freely because everything around them felt generous. That was the illusion that built the city. But somewhere along the way, the illusion cracked. Prices rose, fees multiplied. The smiles felt scripted. The cheap thrills weren't cheap. And the loudest sound on the Strip became something Vegas never wanted to hear. Silence. Visitors didn't stop coming because they were broke. They stopped coming because Vegas stopped making them feel special. The city forgot the rule that made it legendary. If you make people feel like they're getting more than they're paying, they keep coming back. Vegas flipped that formula. Now people feel like they're paying more and getting less, and that small shift, that tiny psychological betrayal, started the decline long before the casinos emptied. The transformation didn't start on the Strip. It started in boardrooms. Casinos once run by showmen, risk-takers, and quirky visionaries were absorbed by corporations whose only metric of success was quarterly profit. Vegas didn't notice the shift at first. Why would it? The lights stayed bright. The crowds kept coming. The illusion still worked. But the soul changed. Old Vegas chased loyalty. New Vegas chased margins. RevPAR replaced hospitality. Algorithms replaced instinct. Fees replaced generosity. Free parking vanished. Complimentary drinks shrank. Buffets closed or became luxury experiences no one asked for. Smiles became scripted. Corporate strategy reduced the guest experience to a line item. How much more can we extract without driving them away? It was a dangerous question, and they pushed it too far. Consolidation meant fewer competitors. Fewer competitors meant more uniformity. More uniformity meant a Strip filled with brands instead of personalities. Vegas no longer felt like dozens of unique worlds. It felt like a single corporate complex stretched for miles. And while the buildings got taller, another number was rising quietly in the shadows: debt. Billions in loans funded expansions meant to impress investors, not visitors. As interest rates climbed, those debts grew heavier, turning room rates and resort fees into lifelines instead of luxuries. Vegas wasn't optimizing profits. It was trying to survive its own financial architecture. And just as corporate Vegas tightened its grip, another force began eroding the foundation from the inside. People tolerate price hikes everywhere else: rent, groceries, gas, because they have no choice. But vacation is the one place where people can walk away. And they did. A Vegas weekend that once felt inexpensive now feels like an invoice. Flights doubled, rooms tripled, meals cost as much as a week of groceries. Fees appear everywhere: Wi-Fi, early check-in, late checkout, facility charges, administrative add-ons, and of course, the infamous resort fee. But the most damaging shift wasn't the price of food or rooms. It was the math behind the machines. Slot hold percentages crept upward every few years. You didn't just lose money. You lost it faster. Games felt colder, shorter, and emptier. People didn't articulate it this way, but they felt it. Vegas used to let you stretch $100 into hours of excitement. Now that same bill disappears before your drink arrives. And at the exact moment Vegas needed to offer value, the world gave people alternatives. Mexico, Thailand, Portugal, Croatia, Dubai, cruises, all-inclusive resorts, all cheaper or richer experiences than a modern Vegas weekend. Vegas didn't price itself out of reach, it priced itself into comparison. The illusion shattered the moment visitors realized they weren't being spoiled, they were being squeezed. But while tourists were recalculating, something deeper was breaking inside the city. Vegas never ran on machines, it ran on people, the workers who made strangers feel like VIPs. But the corporate era pushed them past their limits. Wages stagnated while housing costs exploded. Shifts grew longer as departments shrank. Automation chipped away at entire roles. Benefits eroded. Commutes stretched farther as locals were priced out of the city they served. You can't force warmth out of exhaustion. Tourists felt it. The smiles were thinner, the energy was flatter, the conversations shorter. But none of it was the workers' fault. They were operating under a system that treated them the same way it treated guests, as costs to control. Eventually, the workforce snapped. Threats of strikes surged across the Strip. Tens of thousands of people who once kept Vegas joyful were now signaling they couldn't survive under the city's new model. Vegas believed its crisis started when tourists spent less, but the real decline began when the people who created the magic couldn't afford to keep delivering it. A city can replace shows, it can renovate casinos, it can rebrand itself endlessly. But it cannot survive losing the people who make it feel alive. That fracture, silent, human, and irreversible, set the stage for the next shock. Vegas was built on one assumption. People love gambling. No, but Gen Z doesn't. Only a minority consider casinos appealing. They don't want to lose money for entertainment. They don't want smoky rooms or windowless floors designed to trap them. They don't want outdated games whose odds feel rigged by algorithms. They want experience, not illusion. Concerts, festivals, immersive art, nature, food culture, a sense of authenticity. Vegas, meanwhile, doubled down on simulation. Brighter screens, louder machines, more polished everything. Gen Z sees through it. They know the slot hold is worse. They know the drinks are overpriced. They know the freebies vanished. They know the room rate is never the room rate. And they have alternatives. Tokyo's nightlife, Tulum's beaches, New Orleans' music, Barcelona's streets, Bangkok's chaos, Dubai's spectacle. The world diversified. Vegas didn't. The city lost the next generation not because they disliked Vegas, but because Vegas didn't evolve into something worth liking. And while executives fought the cultural shift with more events and more construction, the city stumbled into another trap, a financial one. Vegas once built dreams on cheap land and limitless optimism. But the recent construction boom wasn't optimism, it was debt. Giant loans, refinanced towers, bond-funded arenas, skyscrapers greenlit under the belief that demand would rise forever. Then interest rates shot up. Suddenly, those billion-dollar structures needed higher room rates, higher resort fees, higher everything just to service the debt. The rising prices weren't greed, they were a survival mechanism. But survival mechanisms rarely feel magical to the people paying for them. Tourists weren't funding experiences anymore. They were funding interest payments. A city that once thrived on affordability was now trapped in a cycle where every financial decision made the guest experience worse. Vegas expanded because it believed expansion was a strategy. But expansion without demand isn't strategy, it's risk. The Strip became an arms race of glass and steel, each project trying to outshine the last. But bigger buildings don't fix declining loyalty. They hide it until they can't. Which is why Vegas turned to its last big bet, mega events. And that bet broke the illusion more than anything else. Executives believed F1, the Super Bowl, and the Sphere would save Vegas. Instead, they exposed its fragility. F1 didn't just disrupt traffic, it consumed the Strip. Construction walls blocked sidewalks, iconic views disappeared behind metal scaffolding. The Bellagio fountains were fenced off like a backstage area. Hotels felt like fortresses instead of invitations. Visitors expecting freedom found detours, noise, and price spikes. Locals felt pushed out of their own city. Tourists summed it up simply, it didn't feel like Vegas. That's the most dangerous sentence a city built on identity can hear. Mega events bring crowds for a weekend, but leave emptiness for weeks. They raise prices short-term, but erode trust long-term. And the more Vegas relied on spectacle, the more obvious it became that everyday nights on the Strip couldn't stand on their own anymore. But even the mega-event chaos wasn't the true identity crisis. The real crisis came from what the city transformed into while chasing those crowds. Vegas once felt like nowhere else on Earth, a surreal theme park stitched out of pyramids, castles, volcanoes, pirate ships, and neon absurdity. You didn't walk the Strip. You traveled through a dozen fantasies. But the new Vegas isn't fantastical. It's polished, predictable, corporate. Themed casinos were demolished or remodeled into sleek, neutral glass and chrome malls that look identical to luxury districts in any major city. The weirdness disappeared. The playfulness disappeared. The joyful chaos disappeared. What replaced them? Designer stores, generic fine dining, upscale bars with the same decor you find in New York, Miami, or Dubai. Vegas became interchangeable. A city that once celebrated escape now sells curated sameness. And when a place loses what makes it irreplaceable, loyalty fades fast. People don't return for efficiency, they return for identity. And Vegas traded its identity piece by piece until even lifelong visitors wondered, where did the Vegas I loved go? The answer is simple. It got modernized out of existence. But the biggest threat to Vegas isn't cultural or corporate. It's geographic, something no marketing campaign can overcome. Vegas can survive empty casinos. It can survive changing generations, rising prices, even corporate overreach. But there's one threat the city can't negotiate with: water. Lake Mead, the lifeline of Las Vegas, has been shrinking for years. The Colorado River is oversubscribed, overused, and overheated. Snowpacks feeding it fluctuate unpredictably. Climate models show long-term supply decline, not recovery. The Strip consumes billions of gallons through cooling towers, landscaping, resorts, pools, and endless tourist turnover. It's efficient, more efficient than people think, but not immune to the scale of the problem. Most of Vegas's vulnerabilities can be fixed with policy or investment. Water is different. Water is physics. You can rewrite business models. You can't rewrite hydrology. For decades, Vegas thrived on the illusion that the desert would always be quiet. But the desert has begun to speak. People debate prices, fees, and entertainment trends. Few want to confront the reality that the Southwest's long-term water stress isn't a future issue. It's the backdrop of every decision Vegas will make for the next century. A city built on excess is entering an age defined by limits. And that truth forces the question behind every empty casino corridor and every frustrated visitor. What happens when a fantasy town must finally face reality? Vegas isn't collapsing, it's drifting, suspended between the mythology that built it and the economic pressures reshaping it. Prices rose faster than excitement. Corporate strategies replaced human hospitality. Workers burned out. Younger generations lost interest. Debt ballooned. Mega events exposed the city's cracks. Identity dissolved into glossy sameness, and the desert reminded everyone that nothing here is guaranteed. But decline is not the final act. Vegas still has infrastructure, global recognition, and a mythology stronger than entire nations' tourism brands. It still knows how to mesmerize when it wants to. It still has the raw potential to reinvent itself, not by becoming bigger or louder, but by becoming meaningful again. To rise, Vegas must reclaim what people loved in the first place: generosity over extraction, experience over efficiency, imagination over branding, freedom over fine print. The question is whether the city is willing to shift from a model built on squeezing visitors to one built on inspiring them again. That choice will decide whether Vegas is entering a rebirth or sliding into a long, quiet fade. If you care about how cities evolve, adapt, and sometimes lose themselves, subscribe to Geologic. We break down the stories the neon tries to hide. And now I want to hear from you. Is Vegas on the edge of reinvention or the edge of irrelevance? The future of this city, and every city built on illusion, depends on whether people still want to believe in the magic.